Hey guys, Coach Nate here. Today we got something special for you. We're gonna be talking Boston Marathon, Shalane Flanagan, Olympics, what it's like to both go for the Olympic trials and to be in the Olympics themselves, as well as redemption in the Boston Marathon course. We got a great conversation today. I'm super excited. Let's go talk to Mario. All right, Mario, I'm thirsty. I want some coffee.
I'm gonna adjust the place.
So you got a few miles in, just about 10?
A little shy of that, but yeah, a couple miles under my belt this morning.
Not too bad, and you're gonna run with Mikey later?
Gonna run with Mikey later, hitting the track in San Francisco. Doing a little work together. He's racing his first track race this weekend. I'm kind of in the middle of half marathon training, so we're gonna try to meet in the middle for a little session.
Boston is the big prize.
For the spring, yeah, Boston's a big prize. Take four.
Take four.
As I call it. Second year in a row. Had a
Fourth
rough
time's
one.
the charm.
Fourth time's the charm, yeah. Second time was the charm. Maybe the fourth time will be the charm too. I'm doing pretty well in the even years at Boston, or at least the one even year I've run so far. But yeah, last year was a little bit rough. Poor execution on my part. Tough day weather-wise, but should have made the right adjustments, and I did.
Oh, we saw you out there.
It was, yeah, I had a tough go. Yeah, I think I was like, nah, no.
There was a no comment moment.
There was a no comment moment. Indeed, there was.
Okay. All right. Mario, what are you drinking?
Keep it simple. I'm gonna have an Americano. Every once in a while, I'll go to a cappuccino, but Americano is kind of my go-to most days.
What's your favorite drink when you're in Italy?
Oh, just straight espresso.
Straight espresso.
Straight espresso.
I think I'm gonna do some. What do you have for tea?
Tea?
Yeah.
Black, green, herbal?
Ooh, I'll take some black.
Some black. Have English breakfast or Earl Grey?
I will do some Earl Grey. All right. What we got here?
Oh, Americano action.
Oh, that looks good. I got my tea.
I've been drinking coffee for less than 10 years now, which is amazing to me.
That is one of the most interesting facts I've learned yet about you, Mario.
Yeah, you would think that I was a coffee lifer, but that's not the case.
Yeah. What was the day? What was the discovery?
You know, I don't know that there was a discovery. I think it was just an acquired taste.
So that took like way too long to set up the camera. I tried to angle my camera on a table, and I was just being very lazy about the tripod, and I always feel like there's a lesson in there. The lazy way is usually the slow way.
What my dad used to say. He's like, do it right the last time.
Yeah, do it right the last time. I like that. Well, we're trying to do it right with Mario Fraioli here, and really excited to talk to you. And there's a few things I want to talk about, but I thought what might be fun, because it's getting to be almost Boston season, and to talk about the marathon. It was really exciting to see the American female Shalane Flanagan win the New York City Marathon, one of her first major wins of her career.
It was her first major win.
It was her first major win.
Yeah, not counting like the Olympic trials, which is a separate thing, but as far as the marathon majors go, the big ones, the Bostons, the Londons, Chicago's, New York, I believe Berlin, Tokyo are the other ones in there. That was her first major win of her career.
Yeah, so really fun to see Americans, start to do so well. And so I wanted to talk a bit about, Shalane with you. Guys, Mario is sort of like my source for all things that's like real focused running and with like the competitive crowd. So
just a little bit of a geek with it.
Just a little bit, but a geek in a good way. What are you excited? What makes this upcoming spring Boston so exciting for you?
Well, number one, I'm racing it for the fourth time myself, so personally that's exciting. On the other hand, I'm almost a little bummed to not be on the sidelines, because the women's race, especially the American field, is so deep this year. I just think it's going to be a great race to watch.
Yeah.
I don't really have a prediction at this point as to who I think will win, but I think an American could win, and Shalane showed at New York last fall that it's possible. But here we've got Shalane, coming back to Boston. It's her hometown race. She's always said She would love to win that.
She grew up in Marblehead.
She did grow up in Marblehead. So, yeah, I mean, it'd be a big deal for her to win in front of her hometown family and friends. You've got Des Linden, who was second at Boston in 2011. She was fourth last year. She's had great races there. And she's come close, and she's sort of in that same boat as Shalane. She's never won a major. And
how old is Des Linden?
She's 34, and Shalane is 35 or 36. So they're sort of in the prime peak years of their career. So they don't have many shots left to do this. And then you've got Molly Huddle, who has only run one marathon, and she ran it well in New York.
Yeah.
She ran 2:28, I believe, in 2016. She just set the American record in the half marathon, ran 67:25. So she's obviously very, very fit, and she's proven herself as someone who can compete at the global level and has just done very well on the roads in the last couple of years.
So I just read your morning shakeout this morning that was talking about the Houston half marathon over the past weekend. For those of you guys who don't know, Mario puts out every Tuesday. He's in it for, is it 2 years straight now?
We're at 114 weeks as of this recording, so a little over 2 years. Yeah, haven't missed a week.
But who's
in over
counting?
2 years.
114 weekly missives, as he likes to say, and they're so great. They're like super fun to read, and they have like a nice mix of what's happening in the competitive running world as other things that really, inspire you. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you today, because you've made me more interested in competitive running than I have in the past.
Well, then I've achieved one of my goals with the morning shakeout. So
maybe
that's
achieved one of the goals. And one of the reasons why I thought that was cool was because, running, and before we get back into the different lineup of the different marathon runners, and maybe you guys can relate to this too, but running is one of those sports that the fan base and participant base is like way larger than, or let's say this, the participant base is way larger than the fan base.
Correct. Yeah.
Right. If you were to look at any other professional sport, I was thinking about it as I was running this morning. I was like, there are a lot of people who are basketball fans. I love watching football. It's the playoffs right now, super exciting. And I used to throw a football around in the yard when I was younger, but I didn't really play. I don't play now.
Right.
But as adults, we probably have way more runners in the country who are actually fans of professional running.
Yeah.
So what does professional running, bring to, the Boston Marathon? Because you almost have multiple races happening there, right? You have everyone's individual journeys. You've got that elite race there. What do you think, because obviously Boston has been around for so long, where do you see professional running at the marathon level sort of fitting in with everyone's kind of marathon journeys?
Yeah, well, I mean, specific to Boston, it's the oldest annual marathon in the world, and it is still focused primarily on the competitive marathoners. Most of the entrants at Boston have to qualify. Even the middle back of the packers, most of them qualify. And there's charity entries and other such ways to get in, but so
they're committed runners who have shown some work, and they've had to do some marathons in the past to really earn their way.
You've got to earn your way into it. And at the front of the field, I think a lot of it has to do with just the history of the race and the people who have run there over the years, that it is still a big deal for elites to win Boston. If you talk to any Kenyan runner and you ask them, would you rather win the Boston Marathon or the Olympics, 9 out of 10 of them are going to tell you the Boston Marathon. It's a big deal globally, not just in this country, but certainly for for Americans. There's 3 majors that take place here in the U.S. There's Boston, there's New York, there's Chicago. Boston's the oldest of those 3 races, and Chicago and New York still get great runners, and New York was won by Shalane this past year. Chicago was won by Galen Rupp on the men's side.
So some Americans winning major
domestic races is a big deal, and they tend to get more of the attention. I mean, look, if Shalane had won the Berlin Marathon this past year, in my little circle, maybe it'd still
huge.
be a big deal and people would be talking about it. But here it would be an afterthought. But because she did it at New
In
York,
Boston,
and
New
it's
York,
the biggest
or New York home
stage,
turf.
and there's a lot of media hype around it, and she's on all the morning shows and all of that. Her reach extends far beyond like that little circle of competitive runners, and that has the power to inspire people, and not just people who are trying to win the races. I mean, I've interviewed many runners since New York, and Shalane's race is elite runners, I should say, and Shalane's race is inspiring to them because she showed
Inspiring to other elites.
Because she showed other Americans that yes, they can win at the global level, but it extends beyond that. I think it can inspire the middle and the back of the packers, and even people who may not have considered themselves a runner, to say, hey, look, she grew up in this country just like I did. She went to school here. She's obviously very talented, but if you watch the race, there's just something about it that was very magnetic, and drew you in, and was like, that looks really cool. Like, Shalane's finishing in Central Park amongst like tens or hundreds of thousands of fans, and so are the people at the very back. Like, they're experiencing that same sort of finish, and I think for people to see that and who haven't experienced it for themselves, it can light a spark in you and say, I'd love to run the New York City Marathon someday. Or I'd love to
watch her do that is just such an incredible.
It's just it exposed them to something that they otherwise wouldn't have been exposed to. Because if she finished 5th, it wouldn't have been on the news.
Yeah.
She wouldn't have been on the TV shows.
What runners did you look up to when you were younger? Like, who inspired you?
So when I started running in high school, like a lot of other, I guess, competitive boys my age, I was hooked on Steve Prefontaine. Even though he passed away well before I was born, but there's books about him and there's videos about him, and you can search all these different stories about him, and he had this just presence about him that was really attractive. So that was he was definitely a hero of mine from the beginning. And as I learned more about the sport and the history of it, a lot of kind of American legends, Frank Shorter, Bill Rogers, were very inspiring to me.
Frank Shorter was the last American to win a gold medal at the Olympics for marathon.
Correct, and that was 1972.
72.
Yeah, in Munich, Germany.
In Munich.
Yeah, that was a long, long time ago. And at the time, that's actually, that was 10 years before I was born, but if you look back at the time, that victory, because I think the Olympics, they're still a big deal, but they were a bigger deal back in the 70s, and there was a lot of different things going on in the world. When Frank Shorter won that race, and that's being broadcast on TV, that kick-started the first running boom in this country, was Frank Shorter winning that race. It's on a global stage, and that was something that Americans took a lot of pride in. It got a lot of people out, certainly racing and running marathons, which weren't as popular then as they are now, but it got people out running and moving and embracing running, not just as a competitive sport, many did, but also as a means to fitness and toward good health. So it just shows the power that I think these elites can have, not only when they win, but when they do things that are noteworthy that other people can watch, I guess.
So you sometimes see this with elite runners where there's certain ones who maybe see the bigger picture, but there's probably a lot who don't, and they're more insularly focused on their training. Would you say that, or let's say it this way, what maybe responsibility, if any, do elites have in terms of furthering the sport, in terms of furthering, say, the marathon?
So that is a great question, and I think it's a major problem amongst elite marathoners right now who don't realize that they do have a responsibility beyond just running fast. And I think there are a lot of younger runners who want to be elite, get out of college, maybe we're an All-American, show some potential, are looking for a shoe contract so they can further their career, and they see their main job as to run fast and post times. And to some degree it is. I mean, you've got to do that to be competitive at that level, and that's certainly their main focus. But at the same time, they've got to realize that if they're going to get signed by a shoe company, they're acting as marketing for that shoe company. And what does that shoe company want to do? I'm sure there are people there who want them to run fast, but they want to, they want to sell more shoes. They want to reach more runners. And I think they're not just on the monetary side of things, but I do believe there is this responsibility for elites and other notable figures in the sport to make themselves more relatable to those millions of people that you alluded to earlier who are participating in these events.
Does Shalane do a good job of making herself relatable?
I think so. I think she's done a better job of making herself relatable from when she first got started out of college in 2004. And I mean, a lot's changed since then. I mean, social media has changed that game.
Maybe it used to be all you had to do was run fast.
Yeah.
Now,
well, I mean, not just in running, but in general, like 10 years ago, 12 years ago, athletes, people in general, just weren't as accessible as they are now. You can tweet at someone and Shalane can see that, in 2 minutes later. You can comment on her Instagram feed and she can comment back. That wasn't possible years ago, and I think she's one of the veteran runners who have really embraced that side of it, and she realizes, well, yes, I want to win races. I want to run fast. Like, personally for her, that's very important. But she also realizes that she has a responsibility as a representative of the sport of running to help grow it, to help get people interested in it,
to help inspire future kids and coaches.
Look, for her, like, winning a race like New York is kind of the impossible dream, right?
Yeah.
And you and I are never going to go win the New York City Marathon, but watching that could inspire me to set something else that's my New York City Marathon. Like, maybe that's a personal best.
I love how Mario just totally undercut me there. I mean, he didn't know my plans for 2018.
Man, what are your plans for 2018?
Not winning the New York City Marathon is probably not going to happen.
What is your New York City Marathon for 2018? I think that's
that's cool. I like that. Yeah.
But you get my point. I mean,
totally get your point.
And she gets that. And I think looking at some other examples at the elite side of the sport, take a guy like Meb, who's now 41 years old. He just retired.
It's amazing that you can even just mention him by one name, and most people in the running world know who he is.
He's like the Pele of professional running.
Yeah.
But look at what Meb has done in the last 5 to 7 years, basically since 2010 when he lost his contract with Nike. He realized at that point, and he had done well to that point, he had won an Olympic medal, he'd won the New York City Marathon, but he realized if he wanted to keep competing and to be able to be a professional runner for a few more years, he had to do more than just run fast. And he ran fast since then. He was fourth at the Olympics, he won the trials, he won Boston in the years after that. But what he also did is he made more of an effort to connect with the fans, and not just his fans, but the participants, to go to races and make himself visible and say, hey, here's who I am, and
come and meet me.
Yeah, come and meet me. I'm more like you than I'm not. And we have a lot more in common than we don't. And, I'd love for you to follow my journey, and I'd love to inspire you on your own.
Yeah.
And he, I think, has done just an exemplary job of that. And I think a lot of other professional runners, especially the younger ones, should hopefully embrace that earlier on in their career and realize that they have a responsibility beyond just running fast. They have a responsibility to represent the sport of competitive running, to help grow it, to help get more people interested and excited in it, and to inspire other people to go after their own goals.
Now, in your podcast, Mario's newly launched podcast, I'm eagerly awaiting episode 3 that should be airing soon, hopefully.
It will
probably will be aired by the time this video is already up, so make sure you go check it out. And it's what is it? The podcast is Morning Shakeout.
It's just the Morning Shakeout podcast. I think if you search that in any of your podcast players, it should come up, and you can subscribe, and please leave a review. Let me know what you think of it. That'd be great.
It's good. I can't remember if it was your first interview or second interview, but I think it was a runner who was out in Arizona.
Scott Fauble. Yes.
Scott Fauble.
Episode 1.
And episode 1. And he, I think, was talking about the social media discussions and strategy that was included as part of being part. Is it Northern Arizona Elite? Did I have that right?
Hoka Northern Arizona Elite.
Oh man, I'm getting all these like fancy runner names correct. I'm all excited. So he's Northern Arizona Elite, and part of their mission is not only getting all these great runners to train together, but it's actually getting them to share their training and their journey with others. Mm-hmm. That is so cool.
It's super cool. And Scott, on an individual level, he gets it. And Scott's he's a young gun. He's 25 or 26 years old. He's only a few years out of school, and he did just run a fast marathon. He ran a 2:12 in his debut, which is which is smoking fast by any standard. And hopefully, he'll continue to run faster in years to come. But Scott realizes that's not enough. That is not the only part of his job. He has to connect with fans, and he's making a real effort to do that.
And we're back. We lost the battery for a second, but we got a new battery in there. So we were just talking about Ben Rosario setting up his team in northern Arizona.
Yeah, and a lot of credit to him for doing that. I mean, he realizes that look, running is a very individual sport for all of us. But for or individual pursuit, and on the sport side of it, it can be challenging.
Because it does have a team and communal element.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're all doing it alone.
Yeah, and when people get behind a sport, I mean, look at the success of football, of baseball, of basketball. I mean, people love LeBron James. They love, Dwayne Wade. They love these individual athletes who are on these teams. But people become, eventually those guys retire, but they're still a fan of the Cavs. They're still a fan of the Golden State Warriors or whoever it may be, Miami Heat, whatever. In running, that exists to some level, but Ben realized with Northern Arizona Elite that was important, that they have a team.
Making a team that's stronger than any individual runner per se, or it has its own brand presence, however you want to call it.
Right, that will hopefully persist longer than any of the individuals who are on the team. That would be, I think, success in their eyes. But also, Ben has taken a very, let's say, modern approach to it, and they, yes, he writes their workouts, he monitors their workouts, sets up their races, make sure that they're doing the things that they need to do to perform at their best. But he's also monitoring social media metrics, engagement, how well they're connecting with.
So he's measuring their performance in their social media game as much as in their running.
Yeah, because he realizes, like Scott, it's just not enough to run fast. They have a responsibility to Hoka, who bankrolls their team, to their other sponsors, to be present, to engage other runners,
which is also doing them a favor, not only in the short term to help with their running career, but it's giving them a potential career in the running world that goes beyond their ability to run fast.
Right, and that's can be
really interesting.
Well, and that can be a whole nother conversation, because if a professional runner has a good long career, after college, so they're going to go from 22 to maybe 32 or 35 or even 40, as folks like Meb and Dina have shown us here in recent years. But after that, most of them aren't so rich that they can retire at 35 or 40 and say, "Oh, I'm good, I'm done." They need to do something.
They don't have to pay for another gel again, but
maybe a pair of socks, and shoes,
head sweat hats are around. They got some shoes.
But a lot of them, while they're still competing and training, many of them aren't thinking about, well, what am I going to do when this is over? Because at some point it's going to end. You're just going to, you're not going to be able to compete forever, and you've got to have some sort of skill that you can use after your competitive career is over to make a living. And I think that is something that we'll call it the NAS Elite approach, that is sort of a paradigm shift, because that hasn't been in place for a lot of runners and a lot of teams in recent years.
So it'll be interesting to see how that starts to affect potentially other runners as we go, because what's also happened with the world of social media, and all you guys out there, is that anyone with a camera or a phone and a voice can run, and we're starting to see all types of personalities show up in running and contribute to the conversation in some way, where you're realizing that it used to be just talent was the only thing we pay attention to from a speed standpoint, but now maybe that's only one of multiple things.
Whether you're an elite athlete or an influencer or whatever it may be, coach, you've got to make yourself relatable, and I think that's where a lot of elites have struggled in recent years. Do
you know of any elites who see runners who aren't necessarily good runners, but they have a bigger presence online? Do you know of any elites that bothers them, or they struggle with that? I'm just curious.
Personally, I don't have any names to drop, but I see that.
We're not calling we're not calling anyone out.
No,
it just was a general thing.
I've had some faster runners say to me they can't believe that so and so has a contract or is getting paid by a brand when they're so much slower than they are. They can't get past that point, that just that hurdle of like, okay, it's more than just running fast. I mean, more and more runners are starting to get it, and are realizing that it's important that they connect with people on a level besides. I mean, look, most people aren't going to run as fast as the elites, but that's like maybe 1% of it.
Yeah.
But there's probably 99 other percent of different things and experiences that we share as runners where they can relate, where they can connect. And I think whether it's an elite athlete or it's someone who is just very influential for one reason or another, the more of that 99% that you can grab that has nothing to do with performance, the more, the bigger your fan base is going to be, the more connected they're going to feel to you, and the better, like if that's what you're trying to do as a living, the better off you're going to be able to do that for longer.
So I wanted to ask a little bit about your own background and your path, because you're this runner who is very good, if not in the 1 percentile, the top 2 percentile.
No, maybe the top like 15.
Oh, he's being modest. I'm thinking like bigger picture for the world. I mean, how many people can run under 2:30 marathon?
I don't know, honestly.
That'd be hard. But I hear you. It's big, right? The gaps you're looking at when you're trying to get from 2:30 to 2:25 is enormous.
And my perception is probably skewed. But anyway, we could debate that another day.
Anyway, I think the dude's fast. But what's interesting is that you've made a career not necessarily with your legs. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's sort of informed it. So, we talked before about, you got out of college, you were trying to run competitively. Here you are 10 years later. Did you envision what you're doing now 10 years ago?
Dude, we're almost 15 years
15 years ago? 15 years ago?
We're almost 15 years later. Yes and no. At 21, 22 years old, I wanted to qualify for the Olympic trials. It was realistic for me at the time to do so in the marathon if I had stuck with it for a while. And I went about it the wrong way. I thought I knew more than I did, and I made a lot of mistakes. And I learned from those mistakes, and I think those learnings have certainly informed my perspective now as a coach and someone who mentors a lot of other athletes. I just, beyond the competitive side of it and my own goals of qualifying for the Olympic trials or whatever it may be, I just knew I wanted to be involved in running for the rest of my life. I loved it. I still love it. And I've been fortunate to make a career out of it. And it's what I do every day. So I knew that, and I was at least had enough common sense to realize that I was only going to be able to compete for so long. I wasn't going to be able to do that for the rest of my life. And maybe eventually.
When was that shift for you? Because there are times where obviously in your past you were really focused on running, and so much so that this took up. You were giving it as much space as you thought it needed, and letting, certainly not neglecting other things, but putting them a little bit on the back burner as much as possible. When did that start to shift for you, when all of a sudden you realized you're okay, running's still important for me, I still want to be competitive, but all of a sudden I'm going to pay attention to these other aspects that could, bring me joy, help me, reach other runners?
2009, yeah, I can pin it pretty specifically, because in 2009 I had made the decision to leave my full-time job at the time, which was managing a running store. I am that guy who was managing a running store, because I wanted to write and coach more. So I scaled my hours back at the running store to just 3 days a week so that I could devote 2 full days a week to building or doing more coaching and doing more writing. And that lasted for 6 months, because I ended up getting hired at competitor.com to be the web editor, which was full time, and that's where most of my energy went after that. And that time from 2010 to 2016 was very formative for me, but I was still coaching, just to a lesser degree. But I knew at that time that's the path that I wanted to be on. I still wanted to run myself and train and compete to some degree, but that goal of qualifying for the Olympic trials or doing something at the very highest level of the sport totally went on the back burner. It wasn't as important to me, but I wanted to become a better writer, and I wanted to become a better coach and do more of those things.
Was that an exciting turn? Was that a reluctant turn? Was it like, oh man, I really want to do the Olympic trials and I can't, so now I guess I'll do this? Were they both sort of equal? Like, what was that like, the transition?
No, it was an exciting turn. I mean, I made the decision myself to devote more time to writing and coaching, because I can't explain why, but I knew at the time that that's where I could have the biggest impact. And that's really, like, even still now, like, what I want to do is, like, I want to impact other people in a positive way. And I knew that I could do that better through coaching and through writing than I could my own running. So I shifted my perspective, and I haven't looked back on that since. And now I'm in a position where I'm doing more coaching than writing. And a lot's changed since, like, as we talked about, since 2009.
And since you've actually gotten to go to the Olympics,
right?
But as a coach.
I went as a coach, yeah.
How was that experience, like, versus, because it wasn't that far away from you being an athlete to you being there as a coach and seeing other athletes probably your age competing. Like, what was that like? Yeah,
I mean, I was 32 at the time. No, I was 30. It was 2012. Yeah, I was 30. So, I mean, it was an amazing experience. I spent 18 days in the Olympic Village as part of the Costa Rican delegation. I was coaching a marathoner from Costa Rica at the time. Looking back, it's kind of funny because when I got out of college, I told my dad, this is 2004, that I'm going to the Olympics in 2012. Like, that was my goal. I was like, I'm going to make the U.S. Olympic team in 2012. Not realizing like what a pipe dream that was going to be. And I had totally kind of forgotten about that. Just as I dealt with my own struggles and injuries and some disappointment, and that was like so far off the radar that it was, I'd totally forgotten about it. And he reminded me of that when I went. He's like, do you remember when you told me you'd go to the Olympics in 2012? And I was like, vaguely, but yeah. And like, here I am going as a coach, and it just sort of, that wasn't the original plan. It just sort of pieces had fallen into place. So, and again, I just realized that I could have more of an impact and influence on people as
through your time as an editor at Competitor magazine, you got to meet a lot of elite runners and form relationships with them, and you've got to have some of those runners on your podcast. Some of those episodes are coming out. We won't spoil.
No spoilers.
It is
no spoilers here.
No spoilers. And it just seems like such a neat journey, and you coach a lot of really fantastic runners of all levels. Actually, we were talking about this a little bit yesterday, but you are spending time working with some of the actual best runners on the planet, and you are also working with people who are just newer to running. They're training their first couple of years. They're excited to finish a half marathon.
They want to improve.
What's it like to train those two different groups? Is it hard to transition back and forth? Do they need the same things? Like, how do you treat these groups differently?
Well, I don't look at them as groups. I treat everyone as an individual. I treat them as athletes and as people who have different things going on in their life. And so for me, I mean, I coach individuals mostly, and it really is about getting to know that individual and what excites them. What their goals are, what their history is, how they've gotten to where they are, sort of at that point, like what's going on in their life at the time that will have an influence on their training and vice versa. And I look at whether it's Tim Tollefson, who, is third at UTMB,
And explain what UTMB is for those who don't know.
It's a 104-mile circumnavigation of Mont Blanc in France.
It's like the Super Bowl of like ultra running in the world, and it's around one of the most iconic, biggest mountains in the Alps in France.
So whether it's like Tim Tollefson getting ready for that, or it's one of my age group athletes here in Marin County who is training for the Napa Marathon, the approach, I mean, their training is certainly different in terms of volume and intensity and the types of workouts, but the approach is the same. I mean, I look at everyone as an individual and kind of where they are and where they want to go and how we're going to bridge that gap. And the specifics are obviously going to vary depending on the person, but I don't treat the elites any differently than I do any of my other athletes.
That's cool. So, kind of final thoughts and questions. I wanted to bring it back to the Boston Marathon. So last year, I filmed a follow-along workout with you for a little bit, doing some 800-meter repeats with their buddy Mikey, and
That went well.
That went well, and you got to share very generously some of your preparation and your tips for Boston Marathon. Going into this year, what, if anything, about your own preparation is going to change based on what you learned in training for last year and in last year's race?
In terms of the preparation, I don't think I'll change a lot. This is going to be my 4th go at Boston. I feel pretty good about my knowledge of the course and the race and what I need to do from a training standpoint to do well there. What I will change going into this year's race, and obviously we're over 3 months out at this point, so we don't know what kind of day we're going to get. But I'm going to listen to my own advice going into the race. I mean, last year.
Oh, that's some of the hardest advice to listen to.
Yeah, it is some of the hardest advice to listen to. But last year, I mean, I didn't have a great race, and it was no one's fault but my own. I mean, I knew that it was a warm day. I knew that I should adjust my expectations. I knew that the time that I had in my head that I had trained for, it just wasn't the day to run that time. It was just a little too warm, and I should have adjusted my race plan accordingly, and I did not, and I paid for it. Tactically, I ran a tactically poor race.
Given the conditions.
And this year, I'm committed to not doing that. I mean, I have goals that I would like to hit. I have kind of my pie in the sky goal.
So if we go into 2018, we're Marathon Monday, and it's another hot day.
Yeah.
You are okay with stepping away from maybe that time goal, and focusing more about dealing with the conditions.
Yeah, about just executing well on that day and realizing that, okay, I mean, I've had this goal since I ran Boston for the first time in 2008 of breaking 2:30 at Boston, and I've run 2:30:24 on a day, like kind of in Boston, like
2:30:24.
Like I mean, for me at the time, that was certainly not a great day, but it wasn't a terrible day. It was kind of an day. And then in 2015, I ran a very good race. Like, I executed very well, and I ran a 2:32, which for me at the time, that was my A goal. Like, that was probably the best I was capable of on that day. And I've last year it didn't go so well, and I blew up to a 2:47, and that was kind of a tough pill to swallow. But I still have this goal of breaking 2:30 at Boston, and if the stars align and it's that type of day and my training goes well over the next 3 months, I'm going to give that a shot. But if I show up to Hopkinton on April 16th and it's 70 degrees out or 75 degrees out, I'm going to say, you know what, Mario, today is not the day to try to go after a sub 2:30. Like a 2:36 might be a good day today. Let's just execute well. And last year, I mean, I knew at 10K into the race, I'm like, you were being an idiot. And I don't want to have that feeling this year. I want to feel like I'm in control, that I'm controlling the things that I can control, and that I can cross the finish line, whether I run sub 2:30 or I run like a 2:40. If I executed well on that day,
if you feel good and you feel strong, you'll be happy.
Yeah, I can walk away saying like, I did what I needed to do to run well today.
I love that. So maybe we'll get another round 2 of a follow-along workout.
Sure.
We'll see what happens.
Maybe this time when you see me on Heartbreak Hill, I'm not gonna say no cameras.
No cameras. Well, Mario, thank you for taking the time and having a coffee with me and sharing everything about Boston Marathon and some of the elites and about your own journey towards Boston Marathon. Where can people, find you and interact with you? Because you've got a lot of great resources for runners of all levels, too.
Yeah. No, I'm easy enough to find online. My website's mariofraioli.com. That is also Fraioli, and that is also Mario Fraioli is my Twitter handle, my Instagram feed as well, and I post.
It's got some great kind of like the artsy side of photos. They're great. They make you very inspired to get out there on the trails.
I try to be somewhat creative, but yeah, I'm easy enough to find online. Just Google my name, and I'm sure it'll come up. And then the morningshakeout.com. My weekly newsletter comes out Tuesday mornings. I write mostly about running, but really anything that catches my interest that week, and I feel like sharing with other people.
Yeah, they're really fun, guys. They take about 10 minutes or so to read for the emails.
That's the goal.
And then occasionally you have some of these longer interviews attached, which are now turning the podcast. So guys, definitely check out the Morning Shakeout. It's really great. Hits every Tuesday morning.
Yes. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Boom. So I can hear Nora barking.
I can hear Nora barking too. She knows me as the running guy.
I know, she always gets really excited when she sees you.
She definitely spotted me through the window, and I think in her doggy mind, we're gonna be going out for a little run through the woods here, and I hate to disappoint the.
I know, we just ripped 6 miles together, and she has a nap and some snacks, and she wants to go out some more.
She wants to go again. She wants round 2. She's doubling. I mean, she's in like. Nora Dog's in heavy training mode right now, or at least her stoke is pretty high.
The stoke is high. The stoke is always high with the dog, especially when there are birds and running involved.
Those days when I just don't feel like getting out the door, I think of Nora Dog and how excited she would be to kind of just hit the trails and let her.
It does bring a little magic into the day, that's for darn sure. Say hi.
Oh, I know, you know.
I know. Get down. Get down.
Where are we going? We're not going.
Hey, jump down. Say hi.
See, this is the kind of stoke I want to have when I get out of bed every morning to go running. I want to channel my inner Nora Dog.
Jump up there.
You want to channel my inner Nora Dog.
I know. Anytime she's excited, we should ask Nora about her training tips to stay motivated. I just talk a little bit just so I can hear sound from here.
Mic check, 1, 2, sound check. This is me talking. Check.
I always love talking to Mario. Such a good guy, really great and thoughtful coach, and really great writer. So guys, make sure you check out the Morning Shakeout. It's such a great newsletter. You can go to themorningshakeout.com. We'll put a link in this video in the description down below to go check that out. Of course, if you like this video, let us know, guys. Different for us, different style format. If you want to see more of these types of interviews, go ahead and drop a like down below and throw a comment in there. Who would you like us to interview and talk to in the running world? We'll see what we can do and make that happen. So drop that comment. Of course, subscribe to our channel, guys. We got new videos coming each and every week on running, strength training, marathon training, injury prevention, you name it, we got it, nutrition as well. So hit that subscribe, hit that alarm bell, so that way you get the notifications of when new videos are coming out every single time. I hear Nora chewing on a bowl in the back, which means I need to get her inside the house. So I will see you guys later. Cheers, let's get out of here.